This week, I interviewed two teachers at Fukuoka International School in order to learn about the way they plan their lessons. For this interview, I chose Mrs. Nirupama Karkanis, the art teacher for my second graders, and also Mr. Vincent Lihan, our PYP coordinator and my mentor as well. This video presents a summary of their answers and also my personal reflections on the planning process. I asked my colleagues how often they plan lessons and whether they plan them in chunks or one at a time. Mrs. Nirupama says that planning is ongoing and it depends on the project she wants students to complete. Mr. Lihan plans 2 to 3 days at a time for his PYP lessons and one lesson at a time for language and math. However, Mr. Lihan says that one lesson can take more than one class and the plan will be adjusted. Mrs. Karkanis plans her lessons very early because she needs to make sure she has the materials necessary for the project. Mr. Lihan uses the unit of inquiry, which gives an outline of 6 to 7 weeks of teaching. He also plans lessons a week in advance, but adjusts his daily plans according to need. In what concerns their preferred planning template, Mr. Lihan says that his lessons always have 3 body parts: an introduction, a body, and an assessment. Mrs. Karkanis uses the rough outline given by the program of inquiry. When planning her lessons, Mrs. Karkanis has the objective in mind. She also thinks about our lines of inquiry and the key concepts. Mr. Lihan thinks about assessment first. More importantly, he thinks about the skills students need to master throughout that unit. I also asked my two colleagues about the documents they consult when planning lessons. They both look at unit overviews, units of inquiry, and Mrs. K also consults her art standards and concepts. When planning the lessons, classroom teachers collaborate with specialists during Wednesday meetings. Mr. Lihan also talks about the need for vertical planning, where teachers from different grade levels exchange ideas and make sure there is continuity in topics and skills we teach. Both teachers consider differentiation an important part in the planning process. Mr. Lihan talks about the highly ELL population we have in our school and the need to adapt our lessons to meet the needs of these students. We also have gifted students that need enrichment. Mr. Lihan states that enrichment does not mean more work, it actually means stretching the mind of the students. Both teachers use technology in their lessons. However, it depends on the topic and it does not have to drive every lesson. Technology only needs to be accessible to the students at all times. In what concerns assessment, in art, students have several smaller summative assessments, while Mr. Lihan plans a big summative assessment that goes with the unit of inquiry. He also has lots of formative assessments. In math and language, Mr. Lihan also plans several smaller summative assessments. Both teachers reflect on the effectiveness of their lesson plan. The art teacher writes down her reflections to know what to change and what to keep the same next time she teaches the unit. Mr. Lihan reflects after every lesson, but also asks the students to reflect on their lessons as well. For enrichment and remediations, both teachers consider these parts important, and they plan enrichment and remediation after reflecting on the effectiveness of the lesson plan. Now, my personal reflections on planning lessons after interviewing my two colleagues are that lesson planning is vital in the life of a teacher. However, teachers don't always stick to the lesson plan. Lessons get adjusted depending on the student's needs. Lesson planning involves a great deal of collaboration. Also, differentiation is needed in order to fit the needs of all the groups of students. Enrichment also means stretching of the mind rather than doing more work.